Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. Great to have you in the conversation. It's Free for All Friday. Talk about whatever's been in the news this past week, anything we've talked about in this program or anything else that's been in the news, maybe even something we haven't addressed on this program, as long as it's something that's been in the news over the past week. We've been talking here about one of the main differences between Islam and Christianity is what happens after church. Muslims in Egypt, they get out of church on Friday from mosque after prayers. They go out and start torching Christian churches. They torch Christian homes. They kill Christians. They torch Christian businesses. That's what they do after church. What do Christians do after church on Sunday? We go home and have pot roast. We go home and we watch NFL football. We go home and take a nap in the hammock. We go home and play with the kids. We go home and take a walk with the dog. What Muslims do after mosque on Friday, if the circumstances are right, they go out and start torching Christians, Christian churches, Christian homes, Christian businesses. 888-589-8840 is the number to call, talking about this photograph of President Obama in the Situation Room, which I believe has been monkeyed with in some way. Looks suspiciously to me like it's been photoshopped. Even got this article on American Thinker by somebody who is a specialist who writes books for Adobe Photoshop. I think Photoshop, that's an Adobe product, isn't it? She writes books for them. She writes technical books on how Adobe Photoshop works. She knows what she's talking about. And she walked her way through a whole range of things, from skin tone, from the angle of the eyes, from the size of Obama's head. She walks through all sorts of things that are hinky with that picture. But as we've said, we've got the photographic proof that it's genuine, because I'm sitting there and I remember distinctly, ladies and gentlemen, being in that room when that was going down. It was a tense moment. And I'm very happy for the sake of our national security that I was there to be able to provide the kind of expertise and perspective that was necessary in order to bring about a good decision in that deal. So we got the photographic proof of my involvement in the bin Laden raid right next to the commander-in-chief. You'll want to see that on our Focal Point Facebook page. So interesting to see what's happened with that. Let's go back to the phones. Apparently Right Wing Watch, which makes a career out of following me, stalking me, they're about ready to write me off as a complete a wacko, Looney Tune, crazy person. So maybe they'll stop stalking me, and maybe we can all have a little bit less to have to think about. Let's go to Rachel in Lowell, Arkansas. Rachel, welcome to Focal Point with Brian Fisher. What's on your mind?
Thank you, Brian. I was going to congratulate you. I think you should go work for the FBI or some CSI type program.
Yeah,
you are great at solving these problems.
Yeah, maybe I could have a spot for me in their forensics division.
Yeah, there you go. And I also wanted to make a comment on this guy in Texas that killed all these people. Why didn't he have to go through protocol and shave his beard and all that kind of stuff and wear the uniform and whatnot? Why did he call the shots?
It's crazy, isn't it? I mean, I do not understand any one part of that. In fact, now, what had happened, Rachel, a lot of people might not remember this, but what had happened is this became an issue early in the process. And the military judge that was assigned to the trial, he said, look, this is contrary to military regulations. I want you to tie that guy to a bench, and I want you to shave him.
Exactly.
He is not allowed to have a beard. Military regulations don't permit it. And he was removed and replaced as the judge. The military took him out because he was going to insist that Hassan shave his beard, and he was replaced. And now they've got a woman judge that's running that trial. And she, by the way, the judge, female judge, she told the prosecution yesterday they could not use testimony that he gave in 2010 that he wants to be executed. This is very, very important for this trial. This is why, you got a judge. I mean, she's a woman, so who knows how that figures into her judgment and her willingness to bring the hammer down here. But what Hassan did when he was talking to the mental health professionals in 2010, he said, look, if I am convicted, if I am given the death penalty and I am executed, I still will die as a martyr for Islam. I'll have my ticket to paradise. I'll have my 72 virgins. And see, this is what he's angling for. He wants to be put to death because he will be a martyr then for the cause and get his ticket to paradise. If he just winds up going to prison for the rest of his life, there's no martyrdom in that. He just sits there and rots in an 8x12 cell. And that's why his defense attorneys, they want to get off the case because the job of defense attorneys, I mean, anymore, the way they see themselves, their job is to get the guilty off. I mean, that's what they see as their mission in life. I know my guy did it. I'm going to try to find some way to beat the system and get a guilty guy to get off the hook. That's their mission in life. That's not you go in the British system, and the job of the defense attorney originally in the British system was to make sure that the defendant got a fair trial. That was the job of the defense attorney. His job wasn't to get him off. His job was to make sure that the prosecution proved its case, and that's a proper role. Everybody ought to be happy with that. We want to make sure that we don't put people to death, that we don't penalize them, we don't incarcerate them unless the evidence is overwhelming beyond a shadow of a doubt. And you need somebody there to hold the prosecution accountable and honest, all that. Everybody understands that. But defense attorneys today, their job is to get people off. They'll know their clients are guilty, and they're still trying to find some way, basically, to pervert justice by getting guilty people off the hook. So these defense attorneys, they want to try to get this guy off the hook. They want him running loose in the streets of America. And here's a guy, their own client is trying to get executed. I mean, they can see that what Hassan is trying to do is he is trying to engineer a death penalty verdict. That's what he wants. He wants to be executed for what he did. And the judge told the prosecution, you cannot admit that into evidence. You cannot use his own confession that he wants to be executed so he can die as a martyr. You can't even use that in prosecuting your case. So now it looks like the judge is the one who wants to try to get a guilty person off the hook. So anyway, let's go to Julia. The number is 888-589-8840, 888-589-8840. Let's go to Julia in Canal, Winchester, Ohio. Julia, welcome. What's on your mind?
Hello, sir. I just see the leanings toward the Muslim faith in our president as his reason for not wanting to make the decision, so he just let his general make the decision, and then later, to placate the Muslims, had the SEAL team destroyed, and that's my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Well, and there's a lot of concerns about what happened to SEAL Team 6. There are a number of irregularities. There's a press now for some investigation into this. What Julia's talking about is a lot of the members, like 21 members of the SEAL Team 6. I may be wrong on the precise numbers, but many of them went down in a suspicious helicopter crash in Afghanistan some time ago, some months ago. They were on a civilian helicopter. They were on a helicopter that was not appropriately protected, didn't have the kind of defensive mechanisms that a military helicopter is going to have. That was suspicious. There were far too many of them on one helicopter. They normally will just put 6 or 8 SEALs on one helicopter at a time to kind of spread out the team. You don't want all your eggs in one basket, to use that metaphor. When they were all crammed together into this one civilian, unguarded, unprotected helicopter, which got shot down, all 20 of them perished. And I think the parents are absolutely right to insist on some kind of investigation. All right, Julia, I appreciate that. Interesting theory. That President Obama, because of his Muslim sympathies, he didn't want to be directly responsible for the death of a Muslim icon in the person of Osama bin Laden. Perfectly happy to take complete credit for it when it went down, but didn't want to have his fingerprints on the actual execution of that task. And by the way, when I first read about this, I thought it was a parody. I thought it was satire. I couldn't believe it when I read it. And so I didn't do anything about it because I thought maybe we're all being taken for a ride here, that there is a 1 million Muslim march planned in Washington, D.C. on 9/11. Can you believe it? A 1 million Muslim march in Washington, D.C. on the anniversary of 9/11. I arf you not, that is not a joke. It is the real deal. Some Muslim advocacy group called the American Political Action Committee, they're going to sponsor this. They want 1 million Muslims to show up in Washington, D.C. on the anniversary of 9/11. What could go wrong? Let's go to the phones. Let's go to Herman in Splendora, Texas. Herman, welcome. What's on your mind?
Yeah, Brian Fitch, thank you for taking my call. And
yes, sir.
I do support everything y'all do.
Thank you.
I listen to y'all actually every day. I got a mechanic shop, and y'all just played loud and clear throughout my whole shop.
Great. Well, thanks for listening. Appreciate that very much.
The other thing is, like you were saying, Obama sit there and lied to everybody. He sit there and say he's the one that ordered He's the one that pushed that button to get Bin Laden killed. And he wasn't even in the room. I mean, he's the one that done all this ordering, to have this done.
Yeah, and, we know he wasn't in the room because Reggie Love says he was out playing cards with me. So,
Right.
And one other thing, I appreciate the call. Thank you for that. And thank you very much for listening, Herman. One other thing, I don't know where that story is in my stack, but, President Obama, we played the clips. In fact, we played it more than once where President Obama said, look, there is no domestic surveillance program at all. Washington Post, here it is. Washington Post broke the story today that there were actually 2,776 incidents. This is the Washington Post. This is not some right-wing whack job like me saying this. This is the Washington Post saying this, that they discovered an audit of the NSA by the Inspector General of the NSA that it violated privacy of Americans a minimum of 2,776 times in the last 12 months. These are privacy violations of unauthorized collection, storage, access to, or distribution of legally protected communication. So President Obama says, hey, no domestic surveillance here, no domestic spying here. Washington Post says, oh, yes, there are. Oh, yes, there were 2,776 blatant violations of the privacy of the American people at the hands of the NSA, the very NSA that President Obama said, hey, our hands are clean, nothing inky here, nothing wrong here. 2,776 at the hands of the NSA. So there is a domestic surveillance program in reality. We'll be right back after the news. Focal Point AFR Talk. Stay with us.